Welcome to video number 2 for Chapter 11, The Triumphs and Travails of the Jeffersonian Republic. The Judiciary Act of 1801 was one of the last laws passed by Federalists. This law created 16 federal judgeships and other offices, and Adams had signed some commissions for Federalist midnight judges on his very last night in office. Adams was so angry about losing the election that he left in the middle of the night before the inauguration. And this signing of this Judiciary Act of 1801 aroused bitter resentment for packing lifetime posts with anti-Jeffersonians. The new Congress quickly repealed the Judiciary Act of 1801. Jeffersonians were also after the new Chief Justice, who was John Marshall. He had served for 34 years under various presidents, and he dominated the Supreme Court through his intellect and his personality, and helped shape American legal tradition more than any other figure. And he was committed to strengthening the power of the federal government, which is what Democratic Republicans were against. The midnight judges presented John Marshall with a historic opportunity. William Barbary was appointed a justice of the peace by John Adams as one of these midnight judges, and he sued when he learned that the commission would not be delivered because it had been canceled by Congress. Marshall dismissed Marbury's suit, but the court case titled Marbury versus Madison in 1803 enabled Marshall to address the question of who had final authority to determine the meaning of the Constitution. Marshall promoted the principle of judicial review, and the Supreme Court alone, under judicial review, had the final word on questions of constitutionality. Marshall inserted this keystone into the arch that supports the tremendous power of the Supreme Court in American life. And this judicial review and this decision basically gave the court its power. Jefferson urged the impeachment of Justice Samuel Chase, but the effort failed, and this court case established the precedent of judicial independence. Early on, Jefferson really did not want to have a large military, and so he reduced it and preferred to use the foreign policy of winning friends through peaceful coercion. But when faced with an issue with the North African pirates of the Barbary states, who were plundering and blackmailing merchant ships that ventured into the Mediterranean, Jefferson had to do something to try to avoid war across the Atlantic. This is a map showing the Barbary states of North Africa, of Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Tripoli, Tripoli being the site of one of the major battles with the pirates. This picture shows the burning of the frigate Philadelphia in 1804, which was burned after being taken by the pirates by a 24-year-old U.S. naval officer named Stephen Decatur, who burned it rather than let the pirates have the ship. The showdown came in 1801 to 1805, which is called the Tripolitan War, and Jefferson sent the infant army to the shores of Tripoli to try to stop the pirates interfering with American merchant ships. This led to 4 years of intermittent fighting, and Jefferson succeeded in extorting a treaty of peace from Tripoli in 1805 for the bargain price of $60,000, which was a ransom payment that he paid to the pirates for captured Americans and their return. Jefferson also advocated at this time the construction of small coastal crafts, and he built about 200 tiny gunboats, so he did have to invest in the military. Louisiana is one of the decisions that Jefferson most reflected the Federalist view. In 1800, a secret pact was signed with Napoleon Bonaparte, who induced Spain to cede the immense region of Louisiana, including New Orleans, to France. The Spaniards at New Orleans withdrew their warehouse rights that had been guaranteed by Pinckney's Treaty of 1795, so now America was concerned because it needed to use the port of New Orleans. Hoping to quiet the clamor in the West, Jefferson, in 1803, sent James Monroe to Paris to work with Robert Livingstone, who was the regular foreign minister there. They were instructed to try to buy the port of New Orleans and as much land as was possible for $10 million. Napoleon suddenly decided to completely abandon his dream of a New World empire and to sell Louisiana in its entirety. Part of this is because of the French effort that had failed to reconquer the island of Santo Domingo, which is present-day Haiti. It had been a colony of France, but the slaves on that island struck for freedom in 1791, and the slave rebellion was temporarily successful. So the Haitian Revolution eventually crushed French troops and severely diminished their numbers as a result of them getting yellow fever. This is Toussaint Louverture, who was an ex-slave and military genius who led the slave rebellion in Haiti and also established the first black government in the New World, temporarily successful from a slave rebellion. Without Haiti, there was no need for Louisiana's food supplies. So to keep Louisiana from the British, Napoleon decided to sell it and use the money for schemes in Europe. Livingston was shocked when the French asked him what he would give for all of Louisiana. So on April 30th, 1803, the treaties were signed ceding Louisiana to the United States for about $15 million. It's called the largest real estate deal in history. The treaties included the immense tract to west of New Orleans that would more than double the size of the United States. And once again, two Jeffersons wrestled with each other. The theorist and former strict constructionist chose to purchase Louisiana versus the Democratic visionary. Jefferson submitted the treaties to the Senate while privately admitting that the purchase he felt as a Democratic Republican was unconstitutional. But in the end, he made the purchase anyway, deciding it was better for the country, and gained 828,000 square miles at roughly 3 cents an acre. The Louisiana Purchase secured the western half of the richest river valley in the world and laid the foundation for a future major world power. It also established a valuable precedent for future expansion on the basis of equal membership. This was imperialism with a new democratic face and would lead to the displacement of many Native Americans. But this also made the isolationist principle of Washington's farewell operational because it removed Europe from North America. Lewis and Clark's Corps of Discovery were created in 1804 when Jefferson sent his personal secretary, Meriwether Lewis, and an Army officer, William Clark, to explore the northern part of Louisiana. This exploration took 2.5 years. Basically, what they found was a lot of information on scientific observation, maps, knowledge of the Indians in the area, and other adventure stories. And they demonstrated a viability of an overland trail to the Pacific Ocean. This is a gift that was given by Lewis and Clark's expedition to all chiefs, giving them copies of these medals showing Jefferson on one side and the hands of an Indian and a white man clasped in peace and friendship under a cross peace pipe and hatchet in the other. Thousands of missionaries, fur traders, and pioneering settlers would later make their way along the route to the Pacific to claim the Oregon country. Zebulon Pike trekked to the headwaters of the Mississippi River in 1805 to 1806, and then explored part of the Louisiana Territory in 1807, the southern part, where he sighted the Colorado Peaks that bears his name. The Louisiana Purchase expanded the fortunes of the United States and the power of the federal government. In the short term, the vast new territory and feeble reach of the government raised fears of secession and foreign intrigue. Aaron Burr, who was Jefferson's first-term vice president, helped to justify fears of secession. Burr joined with Federalist extremists to plot the secession of New England and New York, and Alexander Hamilton was the one who exposed and foiled the conspiracy. Burr was angry and challenged Hamilton to a duel in which he eventually kills Hamilton. Burr thus destroys the last hope of effective leadership for the Federalists. He then turns his plotting to the Trans-Mississippi West and strikes a deal with General James Wilkinson, who was the military governor of Louisiana and also a secret agent for Spain. Wilkinson's army was to meet Burr at Natchez. But once Wilkinson heard that Jefferson was aware of the plot from Hamilton, he fled to New Orleans, and Burr was arrested and tried for treason. But Marshall, strictly interpreting the Constitution, insisted that the guilty verdict required proof of treason, which was not available, and so Burr was acquitted and fled to Europe. His actions demonstrated that it was one thing to purchase large expanses of territory, but another thing to govern them effectively. This is a map showing the exploration of the Louisiana Purchase and the West. So with the addition of this area of land to the United States came a lot of other issues and dealings with other countries, such as Spain in Florida, in Mexico, in the Southwest, and then eventually Great Britain in the Canadian area. And we'll discuss more about this information and the acquisition of this new territory in our classroom discussions.